So I wanted to talk about diversificate this portfolio perspective. And a portfolio perspective in a regional economy, I mean, I love this stuff. I've done input-output analysis where you take all the different manufacturing firms and you figure out who's selling to what. It was done by a French economist, Quesnay, back in 1600s, I think, initially. But the notion here is that this is what I call somebody else called it, that George Schaefer from Georgia, University of Georgia, developed this. He called it a skyline chart. I added the clouds. And the notion here is each of these vertical bars represents a sector of the economy, starting in ag and forestry, mining and extraction, utilities, so on. I put a few gaps there for clarity, just to space things out. The notion here is the sector will score 100 if the proportion of employment in that sector at the local level is exactly the same as the proportion of employment at the national level. Okay, and if that's the case, one way of thinking about retail industries often come out pretty close to 100, and that means we're taking in our own laundry. Right? The retail sector is covering the needs of the existing population. But if you have a sector that's very high, 200 for utilities, management is up over 200. Now management can be a couple of things. That can be staffing firms, and staffing firms are an interesting problem for economists because they report all their employment, oftentimes they report all their employment at their location, even though the employment could be all over the country. And so I know in Tampa that was a huge problem. We had a pretty large staffing firm down there, and Tampa had way more employment than reportedly had more employment than it actually did. And we knew about it, but there wasn't much you could do about it. This was from a planning perspective. The other thing that shows up in management is sometimes it's corporate headquarters. So it might be a manufacturing firm, but it's mostly a corporate headquarters located here, and that can show up in management. But what it does say is that it's Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton has a bit of an advantage or an unusual dominance there. If you do this chart for Pittsburgh, steel still shows up. I mean, steel's largely gone from Pittsburgh, but they have one big integrated mill still in the region. They have a lot of small specialty mills that are still in the sector. And then if you go over into the engineering sector, what people forget about is all of the engineers, all the people who service the steel industry are still located there. That talent is there. And we ran into that today here, finding the talent that services the concrete industry in our meetings. The concrete industry was really established in the U.S. in this region, and the talent to service the industry, not necessarily produce it, although they can do that too, but the talent to service it is based here, and so you get a strong sector from that. So this is an interesting kind of analysis. The other thing that was proposed at times is to think of it as a missing link. If you see something that's low, professional science and technology is surprisingly low according to this. And again, these are not fixed in stone. You have to look at this and then start saying, well, why is that number high or low, and is it realistic? I never do these and assume I know something. It's a departure point for asking questions, but it's a useful analysis.